So welcome, Bianca. I'm super happy to be talking to you. So for everyone, Bianca is actually probably our earliest user. I guess like we onboarded Bianca when Scrintal was in very, very alpha format that you were not even able to delete cards. And it was in December. And since then, Bianca is giving us amazing feedback, and she's been trying Scrintal across different use cases. So that's why we thought it would be amazing to actually talk to Bianca, hear tips from her, and see how she's using Scrintal. So welcome, Bianca.
Well, thanks for having me, Ed. Yeah, I still remember those times where there were still like the drawings, and then seeing the Scrintal evolve from there. It has been really exciting for me.
Yeah. And so, Bianca, can we get to know you a little bit? Who are you? What are you doing like professionally right now? What's your background, and what are you dealing professionally now?
I'm a researcher, and I became a personal knowledge management coach. I started with the learning what personal knowledge, what this word even means, like, because as researchers, we deal with knowledge all the time. We are creating knowledge and try to process huge amounts of information to try to make sense of them. And then we say, oh, okay, we take notes, but then it's really hard for us to actually use those notes. So then I came to this area of like personal knowledge management. It's really like, okay, if we have to do all this knowledge, how can we manage it to make it easier for us to write the research papers, the publications, or even like blog posts or things that we need. So then I started studying beginning of 2021 in this area, though I have been studying that for like many, many years. Now I'm a personal knowledge management coach, and I focus on teaching researchers how to do personal knowledge management. So how can you do all the things that many people have been talking about, but specific for research? How can we synthesize the literature, make sense when there is a lot of information from multiple sources, and then how we can prepare our notes to use in an easy way when you're actually trying to write a research output, a research-based output. So that's what I have been currently focusing on.
Okay, perfect. And that's like such an interesting venture, I guess, to be on.
Yes, I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I know that before trying Scrintal, you were still using Obsidian, and even before trying Scrintal, you were like such a big Obsidian user. So I really wonder, like, what made you look for a more visual tool, actually?
It was interesting because that's the type of thing that I was not looking into it. I kind of miss it. There are a few things that I was struggling using Obsidian. I was very happy because it was local, it was fast, and all those things. Because I said, well, now it's in my own machine. But then, especially during the research itself, like we started to create the notes, and then it was like, I cannot like make sense of the information, because it's very easy if you, let's say, have 2 or 3 notes and need to make sense of them. Okay. But when you are talking about, let's say you have 15 notes, 30 notes, which are different areas, and you try to make sense of them, then we start to struggle. Then I always like, the tool itself was not giving me the features that I needed. So it was very nice when like the team from Scrintal contacted me. It's like, oh, we have a new tool. Can you take a look? Can we just chat a little bit about that? So I was like, yeah, okay. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's it. That's what I want. And then I started, well, okay, I'll give it a try. So I started trying using Scrintal with my notes, and say, well, actually it makes it much easier for me to make sense of the information, especially when this information is in multiple notes, which most of the time, right, to have like multiple papers talking about an idea and we want to synthesize it. We have multiple models and we want to say, okay, what's the relation between all those things so that we can create new knowledge. And then as I started using Scrintal more and more, I started noticing that I was slowly abandoning Obsidian. So I noticed that even because part of my practice is the idea of atomic notes, or creating notes about one idea. So we have like in one paper, for example, if you are reading, we have multiple ideas. So we have multiple notes coming out of a single paper. And I was finding that it was much easier for me to write those in Scrintal than it was for me in Obsidian before. Because especially on the phone, because on the phone in Obsidian, you can just open one note at a time. And then if I move to another note, if I click on a link, I didn't know how to call. I need to remember where did it come from, which is hard, context to remember the context that you were before. Whereas in Scrintal, I can have everything on my desk and just what I need on my desk at any given time. So it was making much, much easier to work. And I was starting to feel joy again for using my notes, for creating my notes and playing with knowledge. Whereas before, sometimes I will open and I was like, I don't want to work on that. So I know that I started to move into Scrintal more and more. So that was my part, how my transition worked a little bit.
That's super interesting. And like I heard, I think you were the first person to tell me about this phrase, note sense making. And can you tell me a little bit more about it? Like, what does it mean to you? And also, what does it mean to other researchers, like making sense of their notes?
Yeah, it makes sense of the knowledge because I like to say that, for example, when we read the source, when we have contact with something, it's not like we don't just copy and paste that and then we say, I know it. No, copy and pasting doesn't mean that we know things. So we really need to make sense of the world around us, make sense about on the information that we see every day. So it's really, let's say we are reading something, what are the ideas that are coming to mind? What's my understanding of that something? How does it relate with other things that I care about? How does it relate with my research questions, for example? How does it relate with my work? How could I use that concept even in a different way or apply in a different situation? So that is really like sense make is really like, I have this information. How can I make sense of that? How can I understand that? How can I connect that to other things that I know, and how can I maybe apply that to other situations? So I think that's my main understanding of the sense making, and our notes should be a way that we can support that process, right? Our notes are not just like I store the paragraph there and I forget forever in the hope that one day to just appear in front of me and I will use it. I see more as a process of like really learning and then taking notes of our understanding, even growing our understanding by working with our notes.
And I really wonder, I know that you are doing still research, like you're reading all the time, but then you have some interesting ventures going on the side as well. So how do you use Scrintal in your everyday life now?
Well, I use for so many things. I use a little bit for my business because I left academia beginning of this year, mostly because I want to spend more time with my son. I still love research and I still do research, and I need to decide actually what I will do next year. Would I come back partially or not? And then I do things for my business, like thinking what's the brand, what is my message, what the things that I'll do. Also, still research. I do my own research, especially in the area of PKM, to try to learn more and see how we can improve PKM for the purpose of research, especially, which is my focus. And when I talk about research, I'm talking about professional research and amateur research or hobbyist research as well. Okay. So I have been used Scrintal for pretty much everything, almost everything. There's just one thing that I don't use, which is task management, because I think Scrintal is not for that specifically. It can support some lightweight task management, but then that's the only thing that I haven't been used. I use it for idea management. I use for idea-based reference management. That's how I call it.
Okay.
How can we reference, how can we organize our references based on the ideas that we find in those references, rather than have just a list of papers and try to figure out which paper should I cite at any given moment. I used to make sense of information. I started used to keep track of my meetings. I also have a little bit for make sense of my data analysis, for example. So I use for a little bit of everything at the moment in the personal knowledge management.
Yeah, and I know that you also started a course, PCAM for research, right? And can you tell us a little bit about that course? What's the course like? And you also use Scrintal in the course. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the course is really to introduce researchers to the process of personal knowledge management and how they can take advantage of that to create what I call the knowledge portfolio, which is how can I get my knowledge captured, organize it in a way that is ready to use if I want to create an output, or even multiple outputs for the same argument, for example. If I want to create a paper, a presentation, maybe a blog post for a different audience, how can I have my whole knowledge organized that is easy to use, like ready to use? So I talk about how to write down our thoughts, because most of the time we're not used to that. We think that's like, only what's in the literature is the right thing, so I should only like use the same words as there. And we forget that we are part of the process, like we are the ones creating knowledge as well. How to create idea notes, let's say, or those atomic notes. How can we separate them rather than have like a huge note about a paper, and you have the same idea in multiple papers. So the idea itself is just scattered across our notes. And when we need to find the idea, because at the end, when we are writing about specific idea, the idea is just all over the place. How to grow those ideas and have an overview of all the knowledge that I have. And then how to get it ready, how to create an argument from our notes, so that the argument itself is embedded in the notes, embedded into the graph, into the links between our notes, so that you are ready to write an output from that. So that's the idea of the course itself. And what was really, really good in using Scrintal for the course was not only that the students could use for themselves, for their own process of personal knowledge management, but because as a group, we could work together on that. So we could create a board and have exercise and discuss ideas and grow the ideas and link ideas during the co-working sessions themselves. So that was a part that I really enjoyed, and the students really enjoyed as well, which was really like, okay, like we can actually have a feedback live, because we are sharing the same space, but which in otherwise would be like, share your screen now. No, now I share my screen. No, I share. It's not. Is that it was there? We could all see and interact even after the session was gone. For example, someone can say, I just share a board with you. Can you please give me some feedback? I was like, okay, that's really good.
Yeah, and like before we move to like how you incorporate Scrintal in that, I just want to talk a bit about your course. So who is this course for? Actually, who can take this?
Yeah, the course is for anyone who wants to write or create, let's say, research-based outcomes. Okay, so they're consuming research, and they say, well, I want, let's say, to write to my audience on Twitter or LinkedIn, or I want to create content about a given area, but I don't want to be something that, let's say, I woke up in the morning and I thought something, okay, this is my content. But they actually want to consume research, see what people have been talking in this area, and then write from there. So that means that people really need, okay, I need to understand what other people are saying. I need to synthesize information from multiple sources. Okay, I want to know, let's say, what personal knowledge management is. So what people have been researching on this area, or talking about this area. So it's really like, how can I get this idea and synthesize what's coming from different sources? It's for, I like to say, amateur and professional researchers, but recently I say, well, those terms are not good. Yeah. Because many people are actually professional research. They work with research, but they never have the certificate, let's say a PhD certificate or something like that. They do like, is a business analyst or is a journalist, so people who are actually doing research every day. So they are not amateur research, they are professional researchers. So I would say, if you do it for professionally or as a hobby, so that's those are the people that that would benefit from the course, if they really have like a lot of information and they need to make sense of it and have it ready to create outputs from that.
Yeah. And that's super interesting. Like, I think you touch upon something very important, like how we define research, how we define amateur researchers / like professional researchers, and how actually many things that we do in our professional lives, if we obviously do it according to some methodologies or frameworks, is actually research, but it's just not done in academia. And I would love to see actually like how you guys use the boards with like 20 people in your course. And I would love to like, I think like our like audience would also love to just like see how your boards look like and how you guys used it with 20 different people.
Yeah, we use it most for exercise. So it will not be like, wow, this is like so awesome to see as a final product. I have here some boards that you can see like that we share. was good also for me to share the information that I have with the students as part of the teaching process itself.
Yeah.
I can share maybe one example.
Yeah, I would love to see.
So this is one example of a board that I share as part of one of the lessons of the course. So for example, what I have here, there is a TED Talk, and I wanted to explain how does the organization, the argument of that talk is represented through notes, for example, because that's what we would usually do. We will create our notes, okay, with the information that we have, arguments, counter arguments. So then we have the argumentation line, okay? We have the conclusion and the premises, the reasons why that conclusion came about. And then based on this tree, see? Then we can create the output. So it's ready for us to create the output. So in her case, let's say if it's a presentation, then there is the outline of ideas to create that presentation. Then with the content of the notes, we could potentially say, okay, these are the information for the introduction, which is this evidence is inside that note here, okay? And the same here, part A, part B, part C. So everything here is exactly the content of the notes. Is the title of the note, is the main idea, and then the content of the notes is what can back up that idea, for example. So this is one example that we broke down during the course, which is really like, how can we use our notes to create an output? Or how can you even like break down an output into notes if you want to go the other way around. So that was one of the examples that we had.
Yeah, and what was students' reaction to this, like seeing information this way?
They really like it. They say especially these examples are really good because it was more clear. Because most of the times you talk notes and ideas, we feel that we get it, but we only really get when you see an example, you say, okay, now I understand. So one of the things that Scrintal has been beneficial for me as a instructor is really like, I can always create a board and share the board with different examples, different things that we could illustrate what I'm actually teaching, because one of the things was during the live sessions for us to work together on a board, so that I can see how they are creating notes and things like that. But another thing is how can I actually show examples to them at different parts of the course, so I can just create multiple boards for multiple lessons. And then it's like, okay, now I see what you mean. So it's really like, I see what you mean.
That's like super interesting. Like, I see what you mean. And like, do you think like you could have done this, like, and we can be as honest as we can, like with a different visual tool? And like, why did you choose Scrintal and not like mind mapping tool, for example?
Well, mind map will not work, just for start, because of the way how we connect the things. For example, when you use some mind mapping tools, you have something in the middle, and then everything will spring out from the middle. So here at the back of this, there is a whole network of nodes. There are many nodes that sometimes don't appear here. So mind map will not work. For example, you could say, I could use Miro. Yes, you could if you're just creating as post-its. Yeah, but you cannot, it's really hard to reuse the things, whereas in Scrintal, the notes exist as a thing, and then we can create the links between them, even if they are not in the board. I can remove it from the board, I can put again in the board, and the note exists as a representation of a given idea, and I can use it in different places. So I don't see, and I like in more note-based tools, like text-based tools, for example, we cannot do this organization. In Obsidian, for example, could use, for example, Scala Draw and do some drawings and put some notes in there, but it is still not the same, because here I can just go into search, I say I want this, and I put everything here, or I can just come from this output and I can just say like, give me all the backlinks, and it will just give me everything. And in Scala Draw, you not have that. So that's I don't see other tools doing this. There is one tool, Heptabase, that they also talk about something similar, but I haven't tested them yet. And people say, well, they're not exactly the same. So
and like, do you have any other like tips or like suggestions or boards that you would like to show, so that like people, because that's one thing that's been asked all the time, I think, in the community. How do others use Scrintal? So if you have any tips of like a different organization, I would love to see.
Yeah, I have one more maybe that I can share, because that's for my course, but this is my personal one. Because one of the things that I say, our notes are not just to like, let's say, I store the information and leave it there. It's really for us to make sense of things.
Yeah.
So one of the ways how, especially in research, we make sense of things, I could say, I wanted here in this case to create a model. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had here, let's say, community segmentation. Sorry. I want to say, well, how can I segment a community so that we could possibly like provide the information that the people need at a specific point in time, or provide them activities they could engage with, that they will be interested in that community, for example. So what I did, I started like, there were 4 different community models. So they have their steps.
Yeah.
Okay. So this community model have, let's say, first time contributor, and different names. And these as well, like orbit model. So we can have like contributor as well, or participating, and they all have their own meanings. So originally the board didn't look like this. Okay, I have each model, let's say one model here at the top with all this, all the flow, all the segments here, and another here on the side, another here, and another here. And then I started mapping them. So I started moving into space. What is similar to what? So I say, well, all those steps for my purpose, for my specific use case, they're similar. So then I just group them together and I called in my model experts. Okay. Yeah. And here the same, I put them together and I call them regulars. And here the same, I put them together and I call newcomers. And there is one, which in my case, there was no mapping, let's say. Okay. So here at the end, what it allowed me to do is like, by organizing all those multiple cards, because there are a lot of cards here, into space and even giving colors to them, I could actually create a model, my model. That's just my way of making sense of this information. So these white here, they didn't exist before. Okay. So I can say for my use case, specific use case, I have those 4 case, and that's how they relate to the other models. Okay, which in research we'll be doing that all the time, especially when we are create a conceptual framework, and then in other tools I'll not be able to do this. In the best case, I could maybe like take a Miro and put post-it just with the name and move things around, which is what usually we do in those cases. We just like, okay, my note make tool is not working for me. I'll just take post-its and I put them all around and try to make sense of them. Whereas in Scrintal, I don't need, I just put my notes here. I just pull my cards into a new board, shift them around, and that's it. And I can just take my phone later and it will be there, So I don't know. That's
so it's so interesting that, like, as you say, the whites are like basically your model, and pinks are like coming from one model, and blues are another one, yellows are another one.
And because they're connected, I can even like, this is a way even to visualize that, just like, here, what are the pink ones? What are the things from the pink? What's the relations, or the blue one, or the yellow one? Of course, like you can see this from a high level view, but I can always like zoom in and actually read the things.
Yeah, this is super interesting, and like thanks for showing it. It like gives me some ideas about like what I can do with my research, because I feel like during the day, even though I also left academia, I'm doing like looking at all the user feedbacks, try to categorize it, try to like make sense of it, and also trying to like really fit the types of users or segments of users with parts of the product is really, I'm really using research frameworks actually. So it's like giving me many ideas. But thank you so much for this, Bianca, and like I really appreciate you showing us our work. So I'm sure it gives me and also like our audience many more ideas about how they can structure their work. And like I'm very much looking forward to like actually joining your course in next cohorts as well. And I hope like you keep going. And I should say that like I personally really enjoy all the content that you create.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for first of all, Scrintal, and for actually having contacted me, found me at the very beginning. So I'm really happy to be for having been part of the process from the beginning and see how it's growing and see still the potential to go, because I think there is a lot more that can have a huge impact, especially for research. So I'm really like fingers crossed to see like where Scrintal is going next. I would love to have you as part of our course. So I'm really waiting for that. Really looking forward for that. So thanks for having me today. And I really would like to be sharing more and talk a little bit more about Scrintal here in the near future.
Thank you. Great. I'm sure we will do so. Yeah. See you. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.